As Brett Kavanaugh takes his seat on the Supreme Court, the left copes in mature, considered fashion. Or not. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Oh, man, we have a lot going on today. We're going to get to all the news in just a second. First, I want to let you know that tonight is round 2, my next stop in my YAF tour. It takes me to University of Buffalo, so if you are anywhere near or around the Buffalo area, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, you can actually watch me dismiss the left, both in person and online at yaf.org/live. That's yaf.org/live. Make sure to bring your tumblers to collect leftist tears because there's a tidal wave over the weekend, and I know that we have to somehow contain those leftist tears somewhere, so the tumblers will come in handy. Also, before we get into the news, I want to remind you that you don't actually have to go to the post office. The post office is great. There's a lot of great stuff there. But why do you want to get in the car and spend the time going down to the post office when you can just sit at your desk and instead get all the great services of the post office right there? With Stamps.com, you can get all the amazing services of the post office directly from your desk 24/7 when it is convenient for you. Buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter and any package using your own computer and printer. Mail carrier picks it up. Click, print, mail, done. We've used Stamps.com at the office, Daily Wire, for quite a while. We save ourselves time and money that way. Plus, we have a digital scale that allows us to calculate exact postage. Well, you can do that too, because right now, using promo code Shapiro, you get up to $55 of free postage, a digital scale, and a 4-week trial when you go to Stamps.com. Before you do anything else, you click on the radio microphone at the top of the homepage and you type in Shapiro. That's Stamps.com, promo code Shapiro. Again, you get that special deal. Post office has a lot of great stuff, but there's no reason for you to have to go there. Instead, you can just do it directly from your desk. Go to Stamps.com, use that promo code Shapiro, and again, get $55 of free postage, a digital scale, and a 4-week trial when you do. Stamps.com, use promo code Shapiro. Okay, so over the weekend, Democrats really handled the Brett Kavanaugh vote, I think, with great aplomb, dignity, poise. Folks, really, they really, I think, showed tremendous maturity when they realized that Brett Kavanaugh was actually going to be on the Supreme Court. For those who missed it, Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed on Saturday by a 50-48 vote. It was only 50-48, not 51-49, because Mike Daines, who's the senator from North Dakota, had to go home for his daughter's wedding, and so Lisa Murkowski abstained instead of voting against Kavanaugh. So it became a 50-48 vote. And Democrats responded in their typically moderated and I think modulated fashion. It was really good to watch. It was good to see the country come together after such a rough time, because Democrats did, I thought, just a great job. I mean, like here is what happened at the Supreme Court immediately as Kavanaugh was being confirmed inside. For those who can't actually see this, there are people who are legitimately standing there beating on the 13-ton bronze doors of the Supreme Court. My favorite is this lady who's trying to pry the door open. She, like Frodo trying to get into the mines of Moria without the actual passcode. She's just there trying to pry open the doors with her bare hands, though the doors are going to part before her. It's pretty astonishing stuff. Obviously, people really reacting well to all of this. We have an anti-Kavanaugh protester who started threatening people as well, so that was pretty solid. Like to this was good. I don't know if this guy was arrested or what, but things obviously have cooled down in the country.
They're armed and we're not, but there's a lot more of us than there are of them. So I'm going to say it straight up. When y'all come back, come ready to physically fight these folks. When y'all come back, if y'all got any guts about you, be ready to fight these motherfuckers and their asses up. When y'all come back, be ready to up a pig.
I'm sure that this fellow is an expert in the intricacies of Supreme Court jurisprudence based simply on the language that he's using. With regard to his political enemies, I'm sure that he knows the entire line of cases stretching prior to Griswold on the right to privacy, and he's just upset at how that line of cases could be curbed by the presence of Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. Probably that's what's going on. But I don't want to make it sound like it's just, members of an angry mob who are involved in being an angry mob. I mean, they are, but it's more than that, right? It's some of the elites in our society. First of all, I'd be remiss here if I didn't note that Cory Gardner says that his wife has now received gruesome beheading video after his pro-Kavanaugh vote. And he's not the only one who's receiving those sorts of threats. Those threats actually are becoming quite common with regard to Republican members of Congress. I've heard from a few of them who have said that this sort of thing is becoming sort of the norm. But as I say, this isn't just the people at sort of the popular level of the Democratic Party. This isn't just leftist grassroots folks who are very, very upset. We're talking about high-ranking Democratic Party people who have completely lost their mind. I mean, legitimately and completely lost their mind over Brett Kavanaugh joining the Supreme Court in much the way they lost their mind over Donald Trump being elected in the first place. So take, for example, this Mazie Hirono. So Mazie Hirono is a senator from Hawaii, and she was specifically asked whether she believes that people should be confronted, Republicans should be confronted at restaurants and in their daily lives. Watch as she bobs and weaves to avoid answering the question as to whether people should be harassed in their daily lives for the vote on Kavanaugh.
I think that it just means that there are a lot of people who are very, very much motivated by what is going on. Because what happened with Judge Kavanaugh is from the very beginning, this was not a fair process. So that
should the going after people at restaurants stop?
Well, this is what happens, you know, because when you look at white supremacists and all of that, this is what's coming forth in our country. There's a tremendous divisiveness in our country, but this is the kind of activism that occurs, and people make their own decisions.
Oh, people make their own decisions. Right, but we're asking about your opinion on the decisions they're making, see? Like, we're asking whether you think it's okay to yell at Ted Cruz's wife in a restaurant or yell at Sarah Huckabee Sanders or try and harass senators. You're saying, well, you know, people have their opinions. Yeah, people have their opinions. My opinion is that Mazie Hirono is a completely immoral person based on these statements, or at least she's making completely immoral statements. That's pretty astonishing stuff. It's not just Mazie Hirono, of course. You have the members of Hollywood and members of the comic community who are joining in. So here is a writer for Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert, as we all know, the finest comedian among us. I mean, just a hysterical example of heartbreaking genius. He has a writer named Ariel Dumas, or Dumbass. I think that it's probably properly pronounced the latter. Here's what she wrote. Whatever happens, I'm just glad we ruined Brett Kavanaugh's life. Yeah, I have a feeling that's how a lot of folks on the left actually feel these days. So points for honesty. And then you have these comedians who decided they were going to follow around Brian Kilmeade. So Brian is legitimately one of the nicest people in the media business. It has nothing to do with politics. Brian is just a genuinely nice human being. He was walking to the subway, I believe, from Fox News home, and comics started following him on the subway and then harassing him on the subway, asking people on the subway to harass him as well. And here's what that sounded like.
If you have anything you want Donald Trump to say or do, tell this guy, because he's the only person in America that Donald Trump listens to. I'll literally give you $10 if you ask Trump to resign tomorrow. Look in the camera and you say, Donald, Mr. President, it's time to resign. I'll raise it to 15. $15.50. $15.50, a napkin, 5 Tic Tacs, mango, passion fruit, smoothie. You're the only person that can stop this mess. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
So much comedianing, so much journalisming. These folks on the left, they're really holding it together nicely. I think they're really holding it together in a pretty significant way. Kirsten Gillibrand, by the way, if you think that the extremists in the Democratic base are in no way related to the folks at the top of the Democratic Party, all you have to do is watch the relationship between the two. Linda Sarsour, who's legitimately a pro-terrorist operative. I mean, she actually has stood up for terrorists before. She's radically anti-Semitic. She, of course, is one of the heads of the Women's March. She introduced Kirsten Gillibrand at one of the at this latest rally outside the Supreme Court. So here is an actual terror supporter introducing a sitting senator of the United States at an event, and no one on the left batting an eye.
Next up, I want to introduce to you another champion, another one of our people who works for us on the inside. Someone who understands that she works for the people of this country, who's been speaking up against sexual assault and sexual violence before there was a Brett Kavanaugh. Please give it up to the senator from the greatest state in the United States of America, my state, New York, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
Oh, how delightful. What a delight. And there's Kirsten Gillibrand, you know, a real feminist, standing up there with Amy Schumer, as a woman who talked about the great paid maternity leave in Saudi Arabia introduces her. The good stuff there from the Democratic Party. President Trump is correct that the Democrats have indeed turned into an angry mob. And you can see how much of an angry mob they've turned into when we get to what policies they are proposing, because it's pretty astonishing. But here's President Trump hitting the nail on the head. As I've said before, the president is a hammer. Sometimes he hits a nail. Sometimes he hits a baby. Well, yesterday, he hit a nail, and it was satisfying because he said what is correct here. The only thing Democrats had to do, honestly, when Trump was elected, all Democrats had to do was not be crazy. That's all they had to do. They have failed dramatically in that task of not being crazy. Instead, they've decided to go full-blown crazy. Here is President Trump pointing that out.
In their quest for power, the radical Democrats have turned into an angry mob. You saw that today with the screaming and the shouting, not from the 200 people or less that were, you know what? Those people, they couldn't fit in the front row. Look what we have here tonight.
Okay, Trump is exactly right about all of this. Now, what do the left, what do the folks on the left want to do about this? Well, they want to do two things. One, they want to come up with systemic ways to change the system. And two, they want to try out a war on women narrative. The war on women narrative is their great hope that they can start a war of the sexes. They tried this in 2016. They said that there was a war on women, and Hillary Clinton was a representative of women in this fight. They're hoping that because President Trump is alienating to a lot of particularly suburban women, that they can glom onto that, and then they can combine that with enthusiasm for the Me Too movement and use that to club Republicans into submission on a political level. We'll get to the war on women narrative in a second. But first, what they want to do is they want to radically change the system of American government. They're full-blown members of the media. I'm talking about Washington Post reporters today who are shocked to discover that the Senate of the United States is not represented by population. They are shocked to discover that, in fact, each state has 2 senators. And then they realize that, wait, Montana has fewer people than New York, which means the Senate isn't representative. Oh, my God. They're literally realizing this, like, right now. Like, I don't know where they've been for, I don't know, the past 300 years in this country. But, yeah, I mean, this is actually a case that they are making right now. We'll get to all of that in just one second. First, let's talk about the software that your company is using. When's the last time you updated the software your company uses? Probably not recently, because you figure it's more of a hassle to try and figure out what software to use and then install it than it is to just plod along using this old software. Except you're losing time and you're losing money, which is why you ought to talk to the folks over at Software Advice. When it comes to picking the right software for your business, Software Advice has done all the research for you. Their team of advisors can point you in the right direction so you can start working more effectively right away, and it is absolutely free. Just go to softwareadvice.com/Ben. You answer a few short questions about your business. You'll be connected with an advisor to discuss the best software options for your needs. Talking to an advisor can take just 10 minutes or less. Whether you're a medical professional or a construction manager or an HR pro, Software Advice will save you time and help you make a more informed decision. So, if you're an entrepreneur, you work solo, Software Advice is a great way to get an expert opinion, even without the resources of a big company. Go check them out right now. Go to softwareadvice.com/Ben to get started. Softwareadvice.com/Ben. Now, we here at the Daily Wire are very up on our technology, one of the reasons why we have a successful company, but you need to be as well. I'm sorry, you using that old 1997 Microsoft Word format ain't going to work anymore. You can't use, you can't use the old spreadsheets that you were using 20 years ago. Go to softwareadvice.com/Ben. Connect with an advisor for free. Softwareadvice.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. Okay, so the media have discovered a few things that they are upset about. So after 2016, they discovered they didn't like the Electoral College very much because Hillary lost. And now they've discovered that there is such a thing called the United States Senate. And that the United States Senate, believe it or not, actually represents a different population than the House of Representatives. Now, originally, the Constitution said that the Senate was not even to be selected by popular vote within the states. Originally, the state legislatures selected their own senators, which was the correct move. That's the way it should have worked, because that meant that there was even another layer between the population and the Senate. See, the founders were actually quite worried about mob rule. They were quite worried about the idea of pure democracy, because they figured that demagoguery could win over broad swaths of the population, and that would enable all sorts of bad things to happen to minorities inside the United States. This is what they were worried about. And so they set up a system of checks and balances to provide for the rights of states while ensuring that if there was overwhelming support for a measure, that all of that would be able to happen anyway. But Aaron Blake over at the Washington Post, in shocking news, breaking news, he's the senior political reporter at the Washington Post. This is breaking news, guys, hot off the wires. Quote, "People are suddenly deciding that population disparities render the Senate undemocratic. Upon ratification, Virginia had 12 times as many people as Delaware. Disparities are bigger now, but they very much existed when our founders decided on this system." So Aaron Blake is obviously, actually saying the truth here. But there are a bunch of people in the media who have been suddenly calling on folks to get rid of the Senate. I'm not kidding. I'm looking for all the tweets right now, but basically they're making the case that the Senate needs to go away, or alternatively, they're making the case instead that the ought to be packed. So my favorite is Democrats suggesting that Republicans undemocratically got Brett Kavanaugh through the Senate when Republicans had the votes in the Senate. Somehow that's undemocratic. And now they're saying their solution to the undemocratic nature of the movement of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court requires them to add more justices to the Supreme Court in violation of the Constitution. This is from the New York Times today. The bitter partisan fury that engulfed Justice Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court confirmation was the fiercest battle in a political war over the judiciary that has been steadily intensifying since the Senate rejected Judge Robert Bork in 1987. But an even greater conflagration may be coming. This confirmation vote will not necessarily be the last word on Brett Kavanaugh serving a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court, said Brian Fallon, executive director of the liberal group Demand Justice and the top spokesman for Hillary's 2016 campaign. So what exactly are they talking about? Some have gone as far as proposing, if Democrats were to retake control of Congress and the White House in 2020 or after, expanding the number of justices on the court to pack it with liberals, or trying to impeach, remove, and replace Brett Kavanaugh. So good news. The Democrats are taking this all extraordinarily well. They just want to change the system of government completely. They want to get rid of the Senate, and they also want to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court because they couldn't win an election. So well done to Democrats. That's kind of tactic number one. Then there is tactic number two. And tactic number two is, okay, we'll leave the institutions of government in place, but what we are going to focus on innately and inordinately is the supposed war on women. So this is one of the great lies that's being perpetrated. It's being perpetrated by folks like Valerie Jarrett. So Valerie Jarrett, you will remember, was a top advisor to President Obama, and she tweeted this out. I think it sums up well the argument being made by folks on the left. Quote, "To all of the survivors of sexual assault and women who wonder if they will be believed if they are attacked, know there's a growing, powerful movement of support that will always have your back. We believe you. We will stand with you. We will defend you. Change is coming." So the idea here is that if you supported Brett Kavanaugh, you are ignoring women who make allegations of sexual assault. This is so transparent, and it's really quite vicious and disgusting. I, again, opposed Roy Moore for the Senate in Alabama as a Republican because there was verifiable evidence that he had done bad things with young girls when he was a younger man. I did not vote for President Trump in large measure because of his treatment of women. There are lots of people who are not happy with sexual assault allegations. Not on the left. On the left, they're okay as long as it's Ted Kennedy or Bill Clinton. But there are a lot of people who actually get kind of upset about these allegations. But Brett Kavanaugh's case did not have the required verification or corroboration. Christine Blasey Ford's account sort of fell apart. Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, who came out in favor of Brett Kavanaugh, she was basically the deciding vote. She's been ripped apart for what she had to say on CNN, but there's nothing innately wrong with what she said on CNN. Here is her explaining that while she believes something happened to Christine Blasey Ford, she just doesn't believe that, according to the preponderance of the evidence, that Brett Kavanaugh was the guy who did it.
I do not believe that Brett Kavanaugh was her assailant. So I do believe that she was assaulted. I don't know by whom, and I'm not certain when, but I do not believe that he was the assailant.
And so
Okay, and that prompted Mazie Hirono to come out and say, how could Susan Collins doubt? How could Susan Collins doubt? Well, it's really funny because I remember that like a week ago, literally a week ago, there was a woman named Julie Swetnick brought forward by Michael Avenatti, and she claimed that Brett Kavanaugh had gang raped her, or that he was involved in gang rapes. You never hear her name anymore from the Democrats. Why? Don't they believe all women? Don't they believe that all women ought to be believed, regardless of whether there is any sort of verifiable or corroborative evidence? But Julie Swetnick sort of disappeared. Poof, she was gone. So it's not believe all women. It's believe the women who we want to believe because they're slightly more credible. And then Republicans say, okay, well, we agree that Ford was slightly more credible than Swetnick, but we don't believe that she's totally credible either, or at least her story isn't corroborated. And then people are like, no, that means you're not believing all women. Right? But you don't believe all women. You don't believe Juanita Broderick. You don't believe Kathleen Willey. You don't believe Paula Jones. You don't believe the waitresses who were sandwiched by Ted Kennedy and Chris Dodd back in the 1980s. You don't believe any of that stuff. It's maddening. But here's Mazie Hirono saying, how could Susan Collins even have a doubt? How could she even have, because this is a free country where we do not condemn people without due process of law. And we certainly don't condemn people's lives to the ash heap of history simply without any corroborative evidence whatsoever.
Well, to say that she thinks that Dr. Ford thinks that she was assaulted, what is that? Is she mistaken? There was corroboration because she had talked about this assault to her husband, to others, before Brett Kavanaugh was ever nominated to the Supreme Court. She took a lie detector test. Corroboration was there.
Okay, so Mazie Hirono just, again, this is the line. So the line is that we may have lost the battle with regard to Brett Kavanaugh, but we're winning the cultural war. The cultural war is going to be that men versus women, and that women always must be believed, and that men who do not buy in or women who don't buy in are just lackeys of the system. This is the argument being made. So Alyssa Milano was on Meet the Press, which is just because of her expertise in men. So Alyssa Milano showed up on Meet the Press after showing up at the hearing because of Dianne Feinstein, who's a very serious senator, we know. Alyssa Milano on Meet the Press, and she explained, we're winning the cultural battle.
I think a lot has changed, but I also think a lot hasn't changed. And yesterday, we may have lost a political battle, but I do think we are winning the cultural battle. And often, I don't fight for the win. I'm fighting so that generations don't have to deal with the abuses of power that we've had to deal with.
Okay, so this is what Democrats are hoping, and they are hoping in the most wild possible way. In a second, I'm going to give you the article of the day, and this one truly is astonishing because it's just incredible. But first, let's talk about your sleep quality. So, Boll and Branch can make your sleep quality better. Okay, we're not going to agree on everything. In fact, we may not agree on anything, but we can all agree we can use better sleep. So that's why you ought to have some better sheets. The reality is you don't think about your sheets. You just went down to the local store and you picked up whatever sheets were there and you figured, oh, they're basically all the same. They're not all the same. Some sheets are significantly more comfortable than other sheets. And everything Boll and Branch makes is just top notch. From bedding to blankets, it's made from pure 100% organic cotton, which means they start out super soft and they get even softer over time. You buy directly from them, so you're essentially paying wholesale prices. Luxury sheets can cost up to $1,000 in the store. Boll and Branch sheets are only a couple $100. Everyone who tries Boll and Branch sheets loves them. That's why they have thousands of 5-star reviews. Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, all are talking about Boll and Branch. Even 3 U.S. presidents sleep on Boll and Branch sheets. Shipping is free. You can try them for 30 nights. You really have nothing to lose. And if you don't love them, you send them back for a refund, but you're not going to want to because they really are that good. My wife and I have Boll and Branch sheets. We sleep on them every night. We got rid of all of our other sheets because they are spectacular. To get you started right now, my listeners can get $50 off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com, promo code Ben. That's bollandbranch.com today for $50 off your first set of sheets, BOLL and branch.com, promo code Ben. That's bollandbranch.com. Promo code Ben. So quick note on the undemocratic Senate thing. So it's mostly, so I don't want to hit Aaron Blake because Aaron Blake is saying the right thing there, obviously. But there are a bunch of people on the left like Daily Coast guy David Neer. He says, please stop lecturing us about how the Senate is deliberately undemocratic by design. We know this. We point it out because we think it's a bad thing. Except when you thought it was a good thing, like 2 years ago. Right? Like when the Democrats were in control of the Senate, like in 2014, 2013, then you were real happy with the Senate is undemocratic. It's like, again, I love this. Waleed Shahid, who is a writer for Cynthia Nixon, he did comms and policy for Cynthia Nixon. He said, the Senate is undemocratic and it matters. Alec McGillis is a reporter for ProPublica, saying, the undemocratic nature of representation in the Senate is unlikely to be remedied anytime soon. Good job, everybody. Okay, so back to this war on women narrative that the left is trotting out. This is best exemplified by a woman named Alexis Grenell. She has written on gender and politics for the New York Daily News, the Washington Post, and other outlets. So she is a professional useless person. And she writes a piece today that is titled, White Women, Come Get Your People. They will defend their privilege to the death. So what I like about this is that now the left is not just attacking men. Now it's not just a war between women and men. Now it's a war between intersectionality groups. So it's black women versus white women and Hispanic women versus white women, because it turns out white women largely sided with Brett Kavanaugh. White women vote Republican more often because it turns out a lot of women actually think individually. Women don't always think like the left wants them to think, which is fine and good. I thought the whole point of feminism is you get to think what you want to think, but not according to the feminists. Here is this insane piece. I mean, this is fully crazy. This is like get the butterfly net and the straitjacket stuff. Here's what Alexis Grenell writes, in keeping with the moderate tone of the Democrats lately. After a confirmation process where women all but slit their wrists, letting their stories of sexual trauma run like rivers of blood through the Capitol, the Senate still voted to confirm Judge Brett M. Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. With the exception of Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, all the women in the Republican conference caved, including Senator Susan Collins of Maine, who held out until the bitter end. All but slit their wrists, letting their stories of sexual trauma run like rivers of blood through the Capitol. I wasn't aware that screaming at people was a necessitating factor in them agreeing with you. That if you scream at people about your experiences that have nothing to do with Brett Kavanaugh is guilty. But Alexis Grinnell drops the hammer. These women are gender traitors, to borrow a term from the dystopian TV series The Handmaid's Tale. First of all, I think that we ought to have a new rule. Now, there's a rule on the internet about using Hitler. I'm trying to remember the rule about using Hitler on the internet. What's it called? There's an actual name for it. Godwin's Law. So it's called Godwin's Law, that basically the longer an internet argument goes on, the more likely somebody is going to drop Hitler in the middle of the argument. Well, the same thing now holds true for The Handmaid's Tale. Call it Shapiro's Law. The longer any argument goes on with the left, the more of an opportunity the left is going to have to drop a reference to Handmaid's Tale, the most overrated book of the last half century, and a series that has become popular largely because the media have decided that it is deeply important for women to believe that they are on the verge of sexually enslaved by men in a society where fewer women than ever in American history are getting married, in which women are waiting longer to get married, having fewer children, and having more income from jobs than any time in American history. But women are this close. They're this close. If Mike Pence has his way, we're going to stick those women in those red burqas, and we're going to force them to reproduce with us. That's what we're going to do. If Mike Pence has his way, that evil Mike Pence. So here's what Alexis Grinnell writes. These women are gender traitors, to borrow a term from the dystopian TV series The Handmaid's Tale. They've made standing by the patriarchy a full-time job. The women who support them show up at the Capitol wearing Women for Kavanaugh t-shirts, but also probably tell their daughters to put on less revealing clothes when they go out. Ooh, they tell their daughters not to dress all skimpy. Ooh, that means that they're bad moms, because the best moms tell their daughters to go out in the streets naked. That's what the best moms do. I love that. First of all, I just have to stop right there. This notion that if you tell your daughter not to dress skimpily because she should respect herself more than that this makes you a bad parent or a restrictive parent is utterly insane. It's utterly insane. Only somebody who has never really raised children in any serious capacity could think this. Or maybe if you think this, like a different strategy. Maybe I don't know about Alexis Grinnell's situation. Maybe she has kids. Maybe. All I will say is that it is a bad strategy to send your teenage girl to a high school in her bra and panties. Okay, just gonna say it's a bad idea. Okay, and it doesn't make you a bad parent to say so. It means that you're trying to protect your daughter from the fact that there are dangerous people in the world, and also because maybe your daughter doesn't want to look like a sex object all the time. Maybe she doesn't want to portray herself as a sex object. I like how the feminist movement moved from the correct opinion about pornography, that pornography was objectification of women for the pleasure of men, to pornography is empowerment of women. Yeah, I'm sure that all those men who are in their basements right now watching Stormy Daniels' old tapes are thinking about the empowerment of women. They're all feminists. That's what they're thinking right now. Hey, but I love this. Women who show up at the Capitol wearing Women for Kavanaugh t-shirts probably tell their daughters to put on less revealing clothes, say, I also like the equation. Put on less revealing clothes is the same thing as we want to make you a nun now. Okay. When did modesty become such a terrible thing? I think men should be modest too, by the way. But let's not pretend that men don't view women as sexualized objects, especially when women wear clothing that makes them more likely to be viewed as such. It's a free country. You can wear what you want. I'm not saying you shouldn't wear what you want. I'm saying I would tell my daughters that because I'm not an idiot. Okay, this piece continues. They're more sympathetic to Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah, who actually shooed away a crowd of women and told them to grow up. Well, right, because they were screaming at him like banshees. We played the tape on the show. And then he told them to grow up, and then they told him to grow up, which was hilarious since he's 1 million years old. Or Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, whose response to a woman telling him she was raped was, "I'm sorry, call the cops." Which is, again, not an improper response. Like, I'm sorry that happened to you. Maybe you should talk to the authorities so we can catch the rapist and put him in jail is not a horrible response. I like that when did that become a bad response? Like, I'm just wondering, what do you think Lindsey Graham's going to do? He's going to grab his pistol like Yosemite Sam, and you're going to lead him to a house. He's going to burst through the front door. Lindsey Graham. He's going to burst through the front door. He's like, well, I guess I have to shoot this fella now because this woman, without any evidence, said that she was raped by you. Like that's going to happen? What do you think Lindsey Graham is going to say? You want him to say, a woman comes up, she says, I was raped. You think, what's he supposed to say at that point? You know what? Now that you told me you were raped, Brett Kavanaugh's a rapist. What in the... Okay. This continues, and we will get deeper into the insane maze-like mind of the left on these women's issues in just one second. But first, let's talk about how you can keep your hair. So you're looking up top and you're figuring, okay, I'm losing the hair up top. And then you look at your pops and you say, oh, my dad lost all his hair. So maybe I should get active right now in trying to stop all of that. Maybe you've noticed you have a little less hair. Well, the thing is, there are 2 clinically proven medications that let you keep your hair, and now they are inexpensive and easy to get. You don't need to lose your hair if you don't want to, and that's why I have to tell you about Keeps. For 5 minutes now, just $1 a day, you're never going to have to worry about hair loss again. Hair loss runs in my family, and that's why Keeps works for me. Getting started with Keeps is really easy. Sign up takes less than 5 minutes. Just answer a few questions and snap some photos. A licensed doctor remotely reviews your information, recommends the right treatment for you, all without ever leaving your couch. Keeps offers generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there. Some of you probably tried them before, but you've never gotten them this easily for this price. Keeps is only $10 to $35 a month. Plus, now you can get your first month for free, which is a heck of a deal for getting to keep your hair. There's no reason to put it off any longer. Stop hair loss today the easy way with Keeps. To receive that first month of treatment for free, go to keeps.com/Ben. That's KEEPS.com/Ben. Again, free month of treatment at keeps.com/Ben. Keeps, hair today, hair tomorrow. Okay, so we are going to discuss more of this. Plus, I want to get to an astronaut who apologized for quoting Winston Churchill. This is a thing that actually happened in real life. We're going to get to all of that. We'll have a quick note on Columbus as well. But first, you're going to go over to Daily Wire and subscribe so you can see the rest of the show live. For $9.99 a month, you get the rest of the show live, the rest of Michael Knowles' show live, the rest of Andrew Klavan's show live. And today, Daily Wire has launched the next chapter in Andrew Klavan's podcast series, Another Kingdom, performed by Michael Knowles. Today, and on every following Monday, subscribers to the Daily Wire will be able to watch new episodes of Season 2. If you're not a subscriber, you won't be able to watch those new episodes of Season 2 on Mondays. You're going to have to wait until Fridays. And you'll only be able to see a few minutes of each episode, not the whole thing. And this season, we've added a dramatic visual component that you're not going to want to miss. The art is really, really cool. Here's a clip from the first episode of Season 2.
Then, finally, it was dark. Time to go. With the locket still in my hand, I rolled off the bed. There was nothing to pack. I had nothing with me. I ditched my phone so no one could trace me. I'd stopped at an ATM near LA to stock up on cash. I couldn't use credit cards. They could trace those too. I dismantled the GPS in my car. No internet, no social media. I was invisible. And I was utterly alone. I crossed the shit brown carpet to the door. I opened the door onto the night outside. There was Billiard Ball. He stood gigantically on the threshold, framed in the doorway with the parking lot lights glaring behind him. Before I could react, he jabbed me in the neck with a stun gun. The electric blast sent me reeling back into the room, convulsing, down to the floor. I dropped to the carpet, jerking and shuddering. My muscles were locked up, immobile. All I could do was lie there and judder and watch as Billiard Ball stepped calmly into the room and calmly shut the door behind him. His enormous shoulders were packed into a leather jacket. His muscles bulged through the thin sweater he wore underneath. He looked down at my quivering body without a smile, without a sneer, without any emotion at all. He hardly seemed interested in what he saw. He reached into his jacket and slid the little stun gun into his left inside pocket. Then he reached across into his right inside pocket and drew out a small leather case. Terror exploded inside me as I watched him unzip the case and deftly remove a syringe. I made a horrible, helpless, gurgling noise in my throat as I battled to get control of my body. It was no use. My muscles had been severed from my will.
Well, head on over to dailywire.com, subscribe to watch the first and second seasons of Another Kingdom. Sadly, that was not Michael Knowles' autobiography because I'd love to hear about him being tortured. But nonetheless, you can go check that out right now for $99 a year. You can get the annual subscription that comes along with our world famous Leftist Tears Hot or Cold mug, which has been our tumbler, which has been overflowing continuously. In fact, TSA made us put it aside because you're not allowed to bring more than 4 ounces of liquid through the TSA machines. So when you tried to bring it with us, we had to cloak it, actually. So I have the cloaked version here with me today. You can go check that out right now over at dailywire.com. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation.